man. Get off my pillow. Thank you. It's my subscribe pillow. It's important. The subscribe pillow's for me, buddy. Hi, buddy. Hi, buddy. Hey, Internet. This is Christina, the amputee OT. I have to get another surgery on my residual limb. This is going to be the 4th surgery that I've had on my left leg. So I first had a below the knee amputation, and then for various reasons I had to get it revised to an above the knee amputation. And then I had to get my above the knee amputation revised again, and now I have to get it revised again. Oh, here comes UPS with my package! I'll be back. So you might be wondering why Christina in particular has to get a bunch of surgeries on her residual limb, but more generally, if amputees in general have to get a lot of surgeries on their residual limb. And yes, they do. And that's due to lots of reasons, whether it has to do with long-standing deep infections in your residual limb, or bony growths that grow off of the end of your cut bone on your residual limb. Sometimes it's due to something called heterotrophic ossification, which is where you get bone growth where your muscle should be, so your body, in the course of trying to repair itself, repairing the muscle, starts growing bone instead. And in my case, I have a bunch of excess skin that needs to be removed. It doesn't necessarily have to be removed. Like, I could probably live with it being that way, but I'm choosing to get my excess skin removed because it will improve my prosthetic fit and function. Alright, so here you can see my above knee prosthetic leg socket. Here's the brim of my socket. You can see I've got a lot of space in here because my socket is actually too big for me. It is oversized. If I take almost all of my weight off of my socket so that my foot is just barely touching the ground, and use this point as a reference point, and then put all of my weight into my socket, you can see how far I sink down. So every step I take, I'm stepping down into the socket. So basically every time I walk, my leg gets a little longer as I take weight off of my prosthetic socket, and then my leg gets shorter as I step into it. So you can imagine that that is not very efficient to walk on. There are a couple of reasons that I have so much displacement in my socket. One of the reasons is that my socket is oversized because I've shrunk out of it. And the other reason is that I have a lot of excess skin and fat on the end of my residual limb. So it's basically like walking around with my leg in a water balloon, but my water balloon is my fat and my own skin. I also don't have a whole lot of control over my prosthesis because of all the extra skin and fat. And the reason for that is when I move my muscles and my bone inside my residual limb, they basically just move inside, but that movement of my bone and muscles doesn't really translate into any movement of my residual limb, which means I don't really have a whole lot of control over my prosthetic socket. Another issue I have is with maintaining suction in my prosthetic socket. So I've got these fins here and this liner, and when I put my socket on my leg, the vacuum pump sucks the air out, but the problem is I can't get a good seal because I've got so much ability to displace the skin of my residual limb. So you can see I've got all this extra skin here. It's like 2 whole handfuls. And when I walk, my skin stretches, and then when I step down, my skin compresses. So this is what happens when I'm walking. And because this happens, my residual limb narrows when I take weight off of my prosthesis. That breaks the seal on the suction socket, and so then I lose suction in my prosthesis. The suction system that I have is the best system for my particular residual limb. I can't even use other systems, like a pin lock system, for example, because the displacement would be even worse as the pin would pull on my residual limb. And so tomorrow I have to wake up at like 5 a.m. and be at the surgery center at 6:30 a.m. for my surgery at 8 a.m. to remove the excess skin and fat from my residual limb. This mushy, soft residual limb is not ideal for prosthesis use. Ideally, you would have very little excess skin and fat so that you would have more of a connection between your bone and your muscles and the socket walls of your prosthesis. But I don't have that. I've got all this extra padding that's just getting in the way and making it difficult for me to wear my prosthesis, so I'm going to get it all cut off And then hopefully this will be the last surgery that I ever have to have on this residual limb, because it's going to be the third one. And I'm kind of tired of having surgery. Even though they're not cutting into my muscle or my bone, they're just removing fat and excess skin, I still am not going to be able to wear my prosthesis for like 6 weeks. And I'm of course going to have to get a new socket, because my leg is going to be a lot smaller, because you can see there's a lot of excess skin on my residual limb. And part of the reason that my skin in my residual limb is so floppy is because I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which impacts my connective tissue and just makes everything weird. Basically, the connective tissue of my skin and anywhere in my body is hypermobile, and so that is why you get this very mobile residual limb that I have. This excess skin also makes it difficult to put a liner on, because I'm trying to stuff my leg into this tight liner, and it's just kind of rolling all over the place. It's like trying to roll a liner on a water balloon. The end of my femur is actually right here. There's all this extra skin at the end that is not doing me any favors when I'm trying to walk. I want to mention that if you are a person who's considering undergoing an amputation because you think that you will have to have no further surgeries after you get the amputation because you're amputating the part that you keep having surgeries on, that might not necessarily be the case. So just keep that in mind if this is something that you're going through. Maybe you have a damaged or an injured foot and you're considering the option of amputation. That might not actually be the last surgery, because you may need revisions to your residual limb down the road. It sucks, but it's reality. Alright, wish me luck. Thanks for watching. Bye.